Before the first note was even sung, the silence itself felt heavy, as if the walls of the cathedral were holding their breath. Imagine this for a second, a young Filipino singer, thousands of miles from home, standing beneath the towering domes of an old Russian cathedral on Christmas Eve. Candles flickered like fragile stars, the air smelled of incense and winter, and no one, not even him, knew that in just a few minutes, hearts would crack open and tears would fall where no one expected them to. Stay with this story until the end, because what happens next is not just about music, it's about why we all still believe in miracles. And if, at any moment, this story touches your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this deserve to be shared. His name was Miguel Santos. Back in the Philippines, he was just another boy with a guitar, singing Christmas songs in crowded streets while jeepneys passed by and children laughed around him. Christmas for Miguel had always been loud, colorful, and warm, even when money was scarce. His mother used to say, "We may not have much, Anak, but when you sing, our house becomes rich." Those words stayed with him, especially after she passed away when he was only 16. Singing became more than a passion, it became a promise to keep her spirit alive. Years later, life carried Miguel far from home. A scholarship and a strange chain of opportunities led him to Europe, where he sang wherever he could, small halls, cold subways, quiet churches. One winter, he was invited to perform as part of a Christmas cultural exchange event in Russia. It sounded grand on paper, but the reality was intimidating. He had never seen snow fall so thick, never felt cold cut so deeply, and never stood inside a cathedral so vast that his own footsteps echoed back at him. The Russian cathedral was ancient, its walls painted with icons that seemed to watch every movement. The audience that night was unlike any he had known. People sat quietly, faces serious, emotions carefully hidden behind years of tradition and reserve. Among the invited guests was Simon Cowell, visiting as part of a global talent collaboration. Simon had seen thousands of performances, heard every kind of voice, and felt very little surprise anymore. Or so he thought. Backstage, Miguel's hands trembled. He wasn't afraid of singing, he was afraid of failing the song. The piece he chose was a Filipino Christmas hymn his mother used to hum while cooking rice on Christmas morning. It was simple, almost fragile, and sung in a language most people in that cathedral had never heard. The organizers had suggested something more international, but Miguel couldn't let go of this song. "If I sing this," he whispered to himself, "I won't be alone." When he stepped onto the altar, the lights dimmed further. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he closed his eyes and began. His voice rose gently, not loud, not dramatic, just honest. The melody floated upward, weaving through the arches and domes like a warm breath in the freezing air. Though the words were foreign, the emotion was unmistakable. It spoke of longing, of home, of a mother's love, of hope surviving hardship. Something shifted in the room. A woman in the front row pressed her fingers to her lips, her eyes filling with tears she didn't expect. An old man bowed his head, remembering Christmas is long gone. Even the priests, standing motionless near the altar, felt their throats tighten. The song seemed to dissolve the distance between countries, cultures, and lives. Halfway through, Miguel's voice cracked, not from weakness, but from memory. He remembered his mother's smile, the way she would listen as if his voice was the greatest gift in the world. Instead of stopping, he leaned into that pain and let it color the final verses. The sound that came out was raw, imperfect, and deeply human. Simon Cowell, sitting among the audience, froze. This wasn't a performance built for applause. This wasn't technique or showmanship. This was truth. His expression changed slowly, disbelief turning into something softer. By the final note, Simon's eyes were wet. He didn't wipe them away. When the song ended, there was no immediate applause. Just silence. A long, trembling silence that felt sacred. Then, one by one, people stood. Not cheering wildly, but standing in quiet respect, many openly crying. The cathedral that had seen centuries of prayers now echoed with a different kind of worship, a shared human emotion. Backstage, Miguel sank onto a bench, overwhelmed. He hadn't planned to make anyone cry. He had only wanted to sing for his mother. Simon later approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder and simply saying, "I didn't expect that." No one did.
Don't ever lose whatever that is. That night, Miguel understood something profound. Music didn't need translation. Pain didn't need explanation. Love didn't need permission. A Filipino Christmas song could move a Russian cathedral because hearts, everywhere, beat in the same language. As this story reaches you, maybe you're watching from far away, carrying your own memories, your own losses, your own hopes. Let this remind you that your voice, whatever form it takes, matters. And if this story made you feel even a little less alone, take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that miracles still happen, sometimes in the quietest songs, on the coldest nights, in the most unexpected places. Before the first note was even sung, the silence inside the cathedral felt alive, like it was waiting for something it had been missing for years. Snow pressed softly against the tall stained glass windows, candle flames trembled, and every breath echoed under the vast domes. Somewhere deep in that sacred stillness stood a young Filipino singer, far from home, unaware that within the next few minutes, his voice would cross borders, break walls around hearts, and leave even the most unshakable people in tears. If you're still here listening to this story, stay with it till the very end, because what begins as a simple Christmas song turns into a reminder of why hope, faith, and love never truly disappear. And if this story touches you even once, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because your support keeps stories like this alive. Miguel Santos was not born into fame, comfort, or privilege. He was born in a small coastal town in the Philippines where the sea was generous but life was not. His childhood memories were stitched together with simple joys, running barefoot on warm sand, helping his mother hang recycled Christmas decorations made from old candy wrappers, and singing carols door to door with friends to earn a few coins. Music was never a dream of success for him, it was survival, comfort, and connection. When his father left to work abroad and never returned, music became the only thing that filled the silence at home. His mother, Rosa, worked tirelessly as a seamstress. At night, when her hands were sore and her eyes heavy, Miguel would sing while she stitched under a dim bulb. She would always stop, look up, and smile as if the song was worth more than all the clothes she ever made. Every Christmas, no matter how little they had, she insisted on one tradition: Miguel had to sing their favorite Filipino Christmas hymn before they ate. As long as we have a song, she used to say, we are never poor. That belief shattered the night Rosa fell sick and never fully recovered. Miguel was 16 when she passed away, holding his hand and asking him to promise one thing: to never stop singing, even when life became cold and lonely. That promise became the anchor of his life. He sang through grief, through hunger, through moments when the world seemed to move on without him. Years passed, and fate slowly carried him away from home. A visiting choir director heard him sing at a small church and helped him apply for a scholarship abroad. Europe was a different universe: quiet streets, unfamiliar faces, and winters that felt endless. Miguel worked small jobs, slept in shared rooms, and sang wherever someone would listen. Sometimes people dropped coins. Sometimes they didn't even look up. But he sang anyway, because stopping felt like betraying his mother. One December, an unexpected invitation arrived. A cultural Christmas concert in Russia was looking for international voices. Miguel almost said no. Russia felt impossibly far, emotionally and physically. But something inside him whispered that he needed to go. When he arrived, Moscow greeted him with icy winds and skies heavy with snow. The cathedral where the concert would take place was centuries old, its walls holding stories of suffering, prayer, and resilience. On the night of the performance, Miguel stood backstage, wrapped in a borrowed coat, his breath visible in the cold air. He watched other performers rehearse polished pieces in familiar languages. Doubt crept in. His song was simple. His language unfamiliar. His story invisible to these people, or so he thought. Simon Cowell was seated among the guests, his presence quiet but commanding. He had been invited as a global judge and observer. He had seen talent from every corner of the world and rarely felt surprised anymore. Performances impressed him technically, but emotionally, very few reached him. When Miguel's turn came, he walked slowly toward the altar. The cathedral lights dimmed further, shadows dancing on the walls. He took a deep breath and remembered his mother's voice, soft and encouraging. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't explain the song. He simply began. The melody rose gently, carrying warmth into the freezing space. The words, though foreign, carried emotion that needed no translation. It spoke of a child longing for home, of light surviving darkness, of love returning every Christmas no matter how far one travels. The sound seemed to wrap around the audience, touching something buried deep inside them. A young Russian woman in the audience felt her throat tighten. She had lost her brother years ago and hadn't cried in public since. An elderly man closed his eyes, remembering songs his mother once sang during harsh winters. A priest felt tears form despite years of discipline and restraint. And Simon Cowell leaned forward slightly, something shifting behind his calm expression. As Miguel sang, memories flooded him. He saw his mother's tired hands. He smelled rice cooking. He felt the warmth of Philippine nights. His voice trembled, cracked, and then grew stronger, shaped by pain and love intertwined. This was not a performance meant to impress, it was a confession, a prayer, a reunion with everything he had lost. When the final note faded, silence filled the cathedral once more. No applause. No movement. Just emotion suspended in the air. Then someone stood. Then another. Soon, the entire audience rose to their feet, many openly crying. It wasn't celebration, it was recognition. Simon Cowell wiped his eyes slowly, visibly shaken. He didn't clap immediately. He simply stared at Miguel, as if trying to understand how such a simple song had undone him. Later, he would admit he hadn't felt something like that in years. Backstage, Miguel collapsed onto a bench, overwhelmed and confused. He hadn't expected that reaction. He wondered if he had done something wrong. Then Simon approached him, his voice softer than usual. "That wasn't just singing," he said. "That was truth. Never trade that for perfection." The video of that night spread quietly at first, then like wildfire. People from different countries commented the same thing. "I didn't understand the words, but I felt everything." Messages poured in from strangers who had lost loved ones, who missed home, who felt alone during Christmas. Miguel realized his voice had become a bridge. He returned to the Philippines months later, not as a star, but as a son coming home. He sang again in the streets, but this time, people listened differently. Not because he had performed in a cathedral, but because his story reminded them that pain can become purpose. Every Christmas since then, Miguel sings that same hymn. Not for fame. Not for applause. But for a promise kept. For a mother remembered. For every heart that needs warmth in the cold. And if you're listening to this story right now, remember this, your voice matters too. Your story, your pain, your love, all of it has power. If this story moved you, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it. Because sometimes, one song, one story, one small act of courage is enough to make the world cry and heal together.